Hey, truth be told, Captain Ron here. I've got Christopher O'Brien kind enough to sit down and talk to us for Tony Sweet on Truth Be Told here at the UFO Congress 2019. Now, this guy is going to talk about the San Luis Valley, which is one of the most interesting hotbeds of all kinds of strangeness going on in America, right? Wouldn't you say? That's pretty much the spot, right?
Well,
And you've been at this for 20-some years.
Yeah, I moved there in 1989 and was there until 2002. And over the space of 10 years, I investigated over 1,000 UFO sightings.
It's amazing.
200 or so cattle mutilation cases. The haunted site investigations.
Does
flying
37th
humanoids.
Go through there?
Yeah, it does.
Right through there, yeah.
I don't buy into that.
No?
No, it's the 11th most active latitude line, but who's counting?
Hey. I just saw someone touting that today.
Yeah.
Well, your boots on the ground, man. You're right out there. You've seen it firsthand.
Oh yeah. You know, I've been. I was the unofficial deputy of weirdness in 5 counties, so they had my number right there at the dispatch, and whenever somebody would call with some weird, sighting or animal mutilation or whatever.
So you went out and directly would see the cattle mutilation yourself and examine it and stuff. And what kind of anomalies were you seeing?
Well, I was involved in actually several studies that were conducted by the Pinelandia Biophysical Laboratory, and I also bird dog cases for the New York State Veterinary College, and I worked with a number of scientific organizations, veterinary pathologists. I look at these types of phenomenal events from a dispassionate sort of always assume a mundane explanation before jumping off into some extraordinary explanation.
A lot of people around here start there.
Yes.
And it's always like, well, wait a second. Let's start on the ground, and then when we run out of explanations, then we'll jump here.
I always assume a mundane explanation until the facts and the evidence prove otherwise. But for 10 years, I put 300,000 miles on my truck and 6-7 years. I covered a lot of territory, 10,000 square miles. The San Luis Valley is the largest alpine valley in the United States and in the world, actually, and it's about geologically, it's about 150 miles long, about 70 miles wide. It's like a giant football shape, and totally surrounded by mountains. The valley floor is between 7,000 and 7,500 feet, and then the mountains rise, up to 14,000 feet around it, and it's extremely remote. It has some of the most interesting subcultural belief systems and weird isolated communities that have been kind of developing on their own for
Native American communities?
Yeah, and red-haired, blue-eyed Spanish, Hispanic communities, all going all the way back to the conquistador days. So it's a very interesting place. I think there's a variety and intensity of unexplained experience or unexplained phenomena there that's unrivaled anywhere in America, at least. And I've done everything from investigate trooping ferries, leprechauns on vacation with sunburns, just portal activity, every type of craft you can describe, every type of orb, prairie dragons that dogs chase, translucent creatures that run along the ground, just so many different types of.
Those are just sightings. What about like the cattle mutilations? You actually have a body and you can look at them. Give us a strange example of one of these that doesn't have the mundane, quick explanation.
Well, that's I have 200, about 140 of those. I would say you could maybe explain it away as unusual scavenger action. They were equivocal. In other words, I wouldn't bet any money that they were high strange, but 60, that leaves about 60 of them that between 40 and 60, I think that were strange, that looked like somebody actually did it to that animal with a sharp implement. But out of those, there was about 7, 8, maybe 9 that I not much scares me. Keeps me up at night. But those made me think.
And what is it? Because this is with the laser cord out and the eyeball missing, that kind of stuff. Is that typical?
Well, yeah, that's typical in all of them.
Yeah.
A classic mutilation would be defined as head of livestock that's dead for no apparent reason. It's missing soft tissue organs. The genitalia may be gone. The rear end, the reproductive tract is pulled out like a giant plug. An eye's gone, maybe an ear. A patch of flesh seems to be cut off in a square or circle or sometimes even a triangle.
Even with a mundane explanation, this is weird stuff.
Well, yeah.
Why are you doing that to a cow, right?
Well, yeah, and yeah, I've written a whole book about this. It's the only single book that sums up a single entire category of paranormal phenomenon, which I'm very proud of. It took me 22 years to research and 18 months to write, and there's 12 different databases in there.
You have an enormous database.
Yeah.
And you also, I think one of your conclusions was that perhaps it's not that they're studying the cows, but perhaps they're studying the region.
Yeah, the
and,
place.
and,
Yeah,
and the climate and that kind of
the
thing.
environment.
The environment. That's what we would do if we were studying
The place seems to be important, and not the animal. Although some animals are important. For instance, the sacred cows of India, the Brahma, which are they have the floppy ears, the white hump. The cows that you see wandering around in Indian villages. India is in the Far East. Those animals are considered sacred by the Hindu religion, and they're allowed to do whatever they want. They wet nurse them. Women will take an orphan calf and breastfeed it to keep it alive. There's nursing homes for cows. Cows, it's considered good luck for a cow to come inside your house and crap, in your living room, let's say. And so, obviously, India, because it doesn't, eating beef is like the ultimate sin, and it's highly forbidden in India. Hence, only 250 something McDonald's with no hamburgers, by the way. I find it very interesting that out of all the thousands and tens of thousands of cases of mutilations that have been reported around the world, in Christian countries only, that I have not been able to find a single case of a Brahma being mutilated.
Yeah, it's always these hybrid cows, right?
Exactly.
It's never a purebred cow like that.
No, there's tons of purebred cows.
Well, not of this breed.
But never there's sacred Brahma.
Now, isn't that's curious?
That's a huge clue.
Yeah, I mean,
that to me is one of the most important clues that we have.
Agreed. See, an anomaly like that to me is very strong too. Why one, a couple, something?
Nope. The closest I've come is there was one hybrid Brahma, and it was an equivocal case. I don't think it was an actual mutilation case. I think it was scavenged. I have looked, believe me, combed through all the databases, and always have had my eyes and ears open for a Brahma case, and there's never been one. We've had cases of 3,000-pound Simmental bulls that you couldn't get within a half a mile of. You even get in the pasture, and the thing would try to knock your truck over. And yet this thing is found, missing its testicles. The rancher said, I couldn't even go in the damn pasture with this thing. And whoever had the balls to go and take this animal's balls had a lot of balls. So that's saying a lot of balls a lot of times. But no, purebred cows have been found mutilated.
It's less frequent, though, right?
But it is less frequent, and the purer the breed, the less likely it is for the animal to be found in mutilated condition, with one exception. Some of the most ancient strains of beef cattle in North America, which are direct descendants of cattle that were brought here in the 1600s by the Spanish, were mutilated and selected to be mutilated around the Dulce area on the Manuel Gomez Ranch. So there are exceptions. to every
Dulce
rule.
obviously has a lot of activity. That's one of the hot spots.
And it's 40 miles from the San Luis Valley,
there you
which
go,
a lot of people forget.
Yeah.
So the whole mutilation mystery always fascinated me because there's thousands of pounds of physical evidence left behind, and it's my least favorite thing to do in life. I've literally had to burn clothes because of cadaverine.
It's disgusting.
The smell of rotting flesh is the molecule cadaverine, and the smell of rotten garbage is putrescine for you science fans out there. But there's been a few times where my girlfriend said, "You are not coming in this house. You're taking a shower, cold shower. I'll hold the hose. Here's some soap. Let's take those clothes. We're gonna burn them." So
Unbelievable.
yeah, well, it happened a few times. Those are the cases that you don't like to do. I try to get to cases, obviously, within the first 24 hours. After that, there's really nothing that you can do forensically to find out anything scientifically about the animal because it's too far gone for a crime lab or for a veterinary pathologist to do anything, except be really pissed at you for trying to send them samples that really smell up his lab or smell up his office or whatever. So, we have had some studies that have been done. I was involved in one study that actually the whole investigation was filmed by a comedy show from the BBC called Louis Theroux's Weird Weekends. They came all the way out to cover me and punk me, basically. And because I'm smarter than they are, I was able to punk them. And when they originally came, they said, tell us about the aliens, Chris. And I said, well, I'm not going to talk about anything that I don't have personal history with. Somebody reports a type of alien, I will talk about it, but all these pictures that you're trying to get me to comment on, this one looks like your mother-in-law. This one looks like, like an upside-down salt shaker. This looks like an ice cream cone. I was giving them stuff they couldn't use, obviously, and so they got kind of bored and stuff after a whole day of not being able to pull the type of straight, me setting them up for the jokes and everything. So they said, well, we're going to be going out to Vegas to cover the militia group that's going to protect the aliens once they arrive. I said, well, good luck with that. And if something happens, while we're still here in the next couple of days, give us a call. And so, sure enough, that night, the sheriff called me and said, hey, we got, coffin on the ground. We got a fresh case. It's cold. It was in the, about actually it was the mid-30s, howling wind. Animals stayed really fresh. So, I went out there and I picked them up the next day at the airport and drove them out there. And they're saying, so, Chris, is this a real mutilation? I said, yep, Louis, this is the real deal. You guys lucked out. You're going to see the real thing. And
this is so great that you got them on that. I love it that they.
Yeah, well, and they used it on the show too, which was a big show in England.
Did they freak out when they saw the cop?
Oh yeah. Well,
careful what they wish for, right?
Yeah, let's put it this way: we took the tarp off the cow, and when an animal that eats grass dies. All the grass starts to ferment, and there's a lot of gas that builds up, and the cow bloats. And unfortunately, this particular animal had a blocked colon, so there were these huge bubbles coming out of its ass. God. And the cameraman was just freaking out, and the director's going, get a close up of those bubbles, and the camera, I'm not getting close to those bubbles. You get to do your own damn. And so they, and all this is, I'm going on. Listening to all this, and I have my camera, on record, I think.
Good.
However, they threw me off my routine, and I left it on pause. The red light was on, but my camera was on pause. So I go through this whole investigation. I dig up plant and soil samples every 5 feet out to 50 feet, and then I go every 100 feet out to 500 feet, and then I go a mile away. In all 4 directions. This is a lot of work. I take forensic samples.
Did you do that all 200 times? You did that?
No, this was just for this.
I see.
I did quite a number of times.
Yeah.
16, I think, altogether.
Okay.
But this particular study, it was a real intensive one. So I had to, do all these plant and soil sample in really cold. I mean, it was 37 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour wind. It was howling. It was cold, and we took the tarp off the face, and the rancher pulls up in his truck, and he's not in a good mood, and he said, "Why are they picking on me? My dogs, they didn't bark. I'm a taxidermist. I slaughter my own animals. I do all my own, render all my own beef and stuff. Why are they picking on me? Why did they pick on her? It's my best damn breeding cow." And the dog, sitting there, at his feet, and he kind of gives the dog a nod, and the dog runs over to the cow, and starts licking the blood from the eye socket of the mutilated eye socket. And Louis Theroux is like he'd been eating lunch before we got there, and he's like,
oh man,
and he's like throwing up in his hands and going, "Oh my God, that image will stay with me forever. The dog is licking the eye socket of a mutilated cow." And I'm making jokes. I was going to lose those cookies that you ate earlier, aren't you? I'm losing your cookies, and so then I realized that these guys, that I had screwed up, and I didn't have the pause button off. And so later, I called up the BBC or wrote them and said, "Look, you guys, you screwed me up.
Yeah.
I need the footage." And so they made the mistake of sending me all their footage.
Oh, good.
And what I did was I did a transcript of everything that they said, and I included the entire transcript in my book.
Awesome.
With all the jokes that I was making at their excuse.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so if you go online, if you go on YouTube, go Louis Theroux, THEROUX, Wild Weekend Cattle Mutilation, and it's one of the funniest bits you'll ever see.
I'll be checking this out. That's fantastic. I love it.
And so they all the other stories that they were doing, and they were poking fun at all the guy that sells alien insurance, the two competing families, or the different Roswell crash sites, the militia group protecting the aliens. But when they got to the San Luis Valley, they were doing a serious news story, and I was the one cracking the jokes.
I love it. So let's talk about the project now you're working on, which is really exciting. I always have people tell me something like Bigfoot. They're like, "Why don't they just set up a bunch of cameras and capture this thing?"
Right.
You're doing a similar project. What do you got going on there?
Right. Well, we have two projects that merged together about 5 years ago. A buddy of mine, a friend who used to do contract work for the aerospace industry and the intelligence agencies as a lawyer, and he really wanted to set up surveillance cameras to try to capture UFO footage. And I thought it was a great idea, and I said, "Look, we should do it in the San Luis Valley because it's got more sightings per person than any other spot in America, and maybe 1 in 50 sightings are reported. It's tons of events." And he says, "Okay," and so we started working on it, and we got to a point where we hit a stone wall.
What about the expense of this?
Well, and the expense of it, we were using expensive surveillance cameras, and we were using Sony Real Shot Manager, which is a type of automatic patrol routine software, and it just wasn't working. And then we met this engineer named Ron Olsch, who had been working on a similar thing, except he had customized this detect an event, go into record mode, track it like a missile tracking on an airplane with a bounding box and the whole thing, and then also record changes in the Earth's magnetic field, changes in the Earth's gravitational field, right? And then you can plug in tri-field meters, acoustic recording devices, all sorts of stuff. So we've been putting together our first trial run in San Luis Valley. We've got one camera in. We're putting a second camera, and then the MSDAU, the multi-sensor data acquisition unit with all the magnetometer and all the scientific gear. We're putting that in.
Is it like an array that'll cover the whole sky 360, or how's it work?
Yeah, they're pan tilt zoom cameras with 30 times optical zoom. We also have a all sky cam which goes horizon to horizon. It's a fisheye, so if anything happens, it tells over the internet the other cameras where to look. They all swing around and they all triangulate on the event, and the camera closest to the event will then push in and zoom in on the object, and then automatically.
This is some great technology.
Yeah, and we're debuting the technology here at this year's International UFO Congress.
You got it sitting over there on your table.
It's sitting over there. If you go to UFO DAP, Dog, Apple, Peter, or Data Acquisition Project, so UFODAP.com, you'll see a complete description of all the gear, what we're trying to do, how the software works. Our first sale is going to the ranch that just got bought next to the Skinwalker Ranch. So we're going to be...
Is that part of that valley?
No, that's up in Utah.
Okay.
But everybody knows about the Skinwalker Ranch. It's quite notorious.
Absolutely.
So right next door to the west, they're going to have one of our systems watching Skinwalker Ranch, plus the area around there. The whole Uinta Basin is a hotspot area. So, yeah, we're hoping to interest people to become part of the UFODAP system, so that when they collect data, that data becomes part of a larger database.
You're Mr. Database. You got a big database on the other stuff too, right?
The largest database of unusual experiences reported from a single geographic region. Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's quite extensive.
It is.
And so the system itself will be, hopefully, we've got a group in Switzerland interested in getting some gear. I've got a radio astronomer in Bologna, Italy. Got a group in Australia. We've got a group in upstate New York, and of course the guys in Utah, and there's other groups too. They're expressing interest. Once we get these things set up, you become part of the system. You get free updates. We're not trying to make money off this. It's just cost plus. I mean, the full-blown system with all the bells and whistles is less than $5,000. An entry-level system that can triangulate is less than $500.
Wow.
So we're trying to keep the price down, and we're customizing the systems for a particular location and for a particular need that a person has. If somebody wants to try to capture footage of Bigfoot, we can go ahead and design the system so that it is designed to capture evidence of a crypto creature. If you're looking for aerial objects, the motion tracking is, obviously designed for that. So it's the next step forward in the technology and in the the forward progress of ufology, as I'd rather call it. People say, "Well, you're quite the ufologist," and I was like, "Oh, don't say that word.
Yeah.
Don't. You can call me anything you want, but don't call me a ufologist." And they say, "But," and they said, "If I was a ufologist, this is the kind of project that I would be doing." So, I'm not a ufologist. I'm an anomalist. I'm interested in everything that happens in a place: aberrant social behavior, weird belief systems, haunted sites, elementals, weird weather, occult crime. I'm interested in weird stuff and how it ebbs and flows. It seems that when there's UFO sightings, chances are there's going to be weird creatures seen.
We often hear Bigfoot sightings are at the same time. It's like there's these, it comes and goes in waves.
It does, and I really have some theories about that.
Yeah.
I believe that there's a connecting mechanism between these divergent paranormal phenomena. That's a trickster archetype. I have a sense that there's something that shape shifts. It's very tricksterish, that may be pretending to be one thing and then changing to something else.
Now that's right out of Skinwalker, right there.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
always hear that.
Exactly.
Ranch, yeah.
So I'm part of what I would like to think is more of a progressive bunch of thinkers that aren't waiting for the benevolent space brothers to come solve all our problems, or I'm not worried about the evil reptoids coming to rape my sister or eat me, or it's this whole UFO thing. because of the way people are being educated by their televisions.
There's a lot of nonsense in this group.
It's really sad, and unfortunately, I find it really it makes it difficult to get academia and the scientific community involved because of all this.
Even socially, me trying to convince people about this. Yeah, because I try to get people convinced and on board with this, and then they point to one of these terrible things. There's hoaxers, there's disinformation, there's other bullshit, and I got to sift through just to find those few things that maybe are real.
Yeah, we're our own worst enemies.
Yep.
People are allowing themselves to just believe in the things that support their own personal biases, their own personal theories, and instead of looking at things scientifically, looking at the data, being intellectually honest, and looking at all the data. And most importantly, there's some good ufologists out there, but they're only good when it comes to their theory.
Right.
I am open to everything. I have not made up my mind about anything. I'm open to all possibility. I don't believe any of this stuff. I think that
Wait, you don't believe in any of this stuff?
Nope. No, the word belief means that the other half of stuff that you don't believe, you're cutting yourself off from. So I do not use the word believe or belief ever, because that's automatically cutting me off from a whole set of data that could be very important. So I accept all possibility. I'm open-minded, and I'm using the powers of diagnostic science to come up with potential answers that will help move, our knowledge base forward.
Dude, you just summed that up so perfectly. That is awesome. I agree with that approach. We need more guys like you out there doing this. That is awesome. I'd like to ask you one last question, which is, even though you don't believe in any of these things, let me ask you, what do you think, in all of this exploring you've done, what is the strongest piece of evidence that you saw that made you lean towards, well, maybe this is happening?
Well, I firmly am convinced that it's happening. I just don't. I don't use the word believe because the connotation of belief means that you don't believe something else. So again,
I get that. Right?
Yeah. So there's definitely something happening. There always has been things happening. You go all the way
throughout history.
Throughout history.
Like the 1700s, you've got cases.
Well, I've got a cattle mutilation case from 1605.
Yeah. See?
Around the shires of London, hundreds of sheep are being found with inward parts missing, the meat and the wool left behind. Of this, sundry conjectures, but most would agreeth that it tendeth toward fireworks, was the entry in the court logs of King James I.
It's incredible. Incredible stuff.
So, hundreds of sheep are being mutilated around London when Shakespeare was finishing writing Macbeth, when Guy Fawkes had just tried to blow up the House of Lords, and when James I decided to rewrite the Christian Bible and remove all references to bulls.
That's interesting.
So
now, what about? But do you have some evidence that you saw that really, like maybe a cow or one of these that you thought, boy, this is a strong piece of evidence. Mm-hmm. Give us a strong piece that I can leave these guys with, something that's substantial, that makes it really.
I had a case, pristine, 5 inches of snow, fresh snow. It was a calf. It was missing its entire right front leg. Its spine was gone from the base of its skull to its hips, but it was broken in an upwards manner, which is impossible because there was hide there. It was only when we cut open the hide that we could see that the spine had been broken out in an impossible manner.
As soon as we're done here, I'm going to get some lunch. So.
Okay. The rib cage was gone. The lungs were gone. The brain was gone with no break in the skull. The dura, the
brain was gone with no break in the skull. Now, come on.
Yeah. The dura, the membrane, the thin membrane that goes around the skull, was perfectly intact, and the brain case was dry. There was 1 drop of blood on the rear left hoof. The ear tag was gone. The ear was gone. The eye was carved out. The liver and heart, which are the 2 most delectable organs for scavengers, especially in the wintertime, were expertly excised and left side by side in the body cavity. The animal would not rot, even up 2 weeks later, wouldn't rot, but there was a smell of kind of a medicinal, disinfectant kind of smell. That one kept me up at night.
Yeah, that feels really, really odd. Like, what could it be? Could it?
The head of the New York State Veterinary College, one of the top veterinary pathologists in the world, said, "Chris, you sent me a lot of samples, but this one stumps me."
Wow.
He couldn't figure out.
What do they think? I mean, could we do that with lasers or something, or? No.
No,
See.
no, that was a real one. They are really rare. Like I said, out of about 200 cases, I had maybe 140, 160 that were just, equivocal. Out of those, maybe 40 were definitely done with intelligence, with, mostly with, sharp cutting implements. I had one case, 2 cases that were cut with high heat. I had one case with a cookie cutter incision, and then I had this calf that.
High heat. Who's going out there with high heat to cut up cows? I mean, come on,
I don't know.
man. So there's something there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's aliens. I think if anything, it might be the Earth trying to scare us to stop using cattle as a protein source, because cattle are the most detrimental life form on the planet besides humans. We're cutting down more rainforest to make room for cattle.
Well, hey, how about this Beyond Beef and all that? Isn't that great?
Yeah, Jeremy Rifkin, one of my heroes. Yeah. I firmly believe that, and I use the word believe there, that this planet is a superorganism, that it's sentient, and it's attempting to kick us off planet so that we spread our genes out into the universe before the planet gets hit by an asteroid and destroyed, or the sun goes supernova and burns everything up. I think the planet's like mama bird kicking the little birds out of the nest. And if it has to come up with cultural stigmata in the form of cattle mutilations to stop us from destroying the environment and compromising human health with beef, maybe that's part of the equation. Or maybe it's us collectively trying to scare ourselves in a collective unconscious way.
Could be.
So there's I'm looking at these things in new and different ways. There are no one-size-fits-all answers. I don't care what some investigators say. Aliens are not coming down and doing this to cattle. If they needed genetic material to hybridize their dying race, all they need to do was go into a slaughterhouse and grab all the genetic material they could possibly need, because every second of every day we are killing a cow.
Right. So, and we're growing in a lab, because we're already able to do that,
we're
right?
Starting to grow beef, right?
People do love to jump right to the alien thing, don't they? That's the explanation. And really we need to look at other things. But you're out there fighting the fight and looking for the answers, and I really appreciate it. We need guys like you out there. Thanks a lot, Chris, for coming on and sharing your story with us. For Truth Be Told and Tony Sweet, I'm Captain Ron here at the UFO Congress 2019 in Phoenix, Arizona. We'll see you.